Hey guys, Martin Mentor here, back with another video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. I cover box truck content here, logistics, supply chain, just trucking in general. So if you're new, make sure you hit that like button. Today we're going to be talking about a temporary deal for the port workers. This has been hot news all week about the strike. So today we're going to dive into something that happened about an hour or two ago. Port strike and why dock workers agreed to a 60% pay increase, at least until January 15th, 2025. We're also going to touch on some controversy surrounding the ILA, International Longshoremen Association's union president, and his show, we say, I guess, extravagant lifestyle. I think, when he spoke in that interview a few weeks ago and then pushed this strike, it forced him to go under scrutiny, and a lot of people have looked into him, and he lives quite an extravagant lifestyle. So we'll cut a little bit into that. But for a minute, let's talk about this show strike. All right, so for those of you who might not know, the port strike has been a hot issue for a while now. Strikes have hit ports from the East Coast down the Gulf Coast, causing serious slowdowns in cargo movement. These disruptions affect everyone from small businesses to big corporations. And even if you're waiting on shipments or dealing with inventory shortages, ports are crucial to keeping the economy moving. Roughly 90% of the world's trade is done by sea, and the U.S. relies heavily on those ports. So when workers decide to strike, it sends shock waves through the entire supply chain, and that trickles down to people like us in the trucking industry, right? But here's the kicker. The strike wasn't about wages or working conditions, all right? This was a much deeper issue, more about power and control over how port labor operates, especially automation, how automation is continuing to creep into the industry. All right, let's talk about this 62% pay increase. You might be asking, why such a massive jump? Well, it's important to note that this increase is only valid until January 15th, 2025. Now, that's a crucial date because we know that we got an election November 5th, all right, about a month out from now. And we know one thing's for certain, we're going to get a new president, right? So there's going to be an inauguration. Inauguration usually happens January 20th. All right, so this temporary deal is going to end up 5 days before the inauguration. So after that, everything is back on the table for negotiation. So why did both sides agree to this? There's a few reasons. One, urgency for stability, right? Both the union and the port authorities know that the holiday season is coming. If the strike had continued throughout Q4, it would have crippled the supply chain bad, all right, creating massive disruptions. The temporary deal, what it does is it buys time, ensuring that goods keep moving through the ports during the busiest season of the year, all right? The second thing would be leverage, all right? Leverage for future negotiations. By agreeing to short-term deals, workers get immediate financial relief and leverage for future negotiations. It kind of sends a message that they're serious about demanding long-term changes, not just a quick cash grab. All right, number 3 would be public and government pressure. All right, if these strikes would continue to drag on, there was going to be a growing pressure from businesses, consumers, and even the government to resolve the issue. We all know this, at least temporarily, which has happened. All right, no one wants empty shelves, and no one wants the blame for economic slowdowns, especially during the holiday season. But more importantly, especially with an election coming up, I think more importantly with an election coming up. So the union took what they could get for now, which, was a massive bump temporarily, a massive temporary pay bump. It's basically a holdover deal, like I said. And in January, both sides have come to the table and start renegotiating again. So it's temporary. All right, now let's cover this ILA union president and this lavish lifestyle that has been dug up since he's made a lot of he's been all over the place. All right, so he's been under scrutiny. People have dug into it, got in his business, and he lives quite a lavish lifestyle. So this strike, now we know this strike wasn't just about the workers versus the ports. It was a whole nother layer to the story that involves this guy that we're talking about, the ILA's president. His name is Harold J. Daggett. He's the ILA president. He's been the head of the union since 2011, and he has a long history of leading negotiations. But recently, his lavish lifestyle has come under heavy scrutiny. And when I say lavish, I'm talking about, private jets, vacations. I'm talking about cars. I heard about a Bentley. I've heard about yachts, all of that, the whole 9 yards. All right, so now that raises a lot of eyebrows, especially among union members who are out on the front line striking, fighting for fair wages and jobs, right? And this guy's riding around in Bankleys. You dig what I'm saying? So it's tough for workers to justify they struggle when the leader is living in a way that seems, far removed from the reality of the guys that are on the front line. Some critics argue that this type of lifestyle represents a disconnect between the leadership and the rank and file workers. Others see it as a symbol of how power can sometimes be abused in organizations that are supposed to represent the working class. Here's where it gets interesting, though. As the strike continues, many are questioning whether Daggett is truly negotiating in good faith for his members, or if his lavish lifestyle is playing a part in how these negotiations unfold. There are even whispers of internal tensions between the union as workers become increasingly frustrated by the stark contrast between their day-to-day lives and the way their leadership lives. So what does this all mean for the future of the port workers, supply chain, and us in trucking, box trucking industry primarily? First off, the fact that the strike is temporarily suspended means that everyone is getting breathing room. All right, goods will continue to move through the ports at least until January, but after that, things could get a little bit dicey. Again, if negotiations don't go well. January is always a slow month. February is always a slow month. First quarter in logistics is always slow, so that's going to be a crucial time already. All right. And that 62% pay increase, is that definitely going to set a precedent? If they don't get what they want come January, expect another wave of strikes that could make this past disruption look like a warm-up. Remember, January is slow normally anyway. So if you're in logistics, trucking, or any business dependent on imported goods, you may need to stay prepared for more potential delays. Remember, first quarter is always slow anyways. As for the ILA's leadership, well, the situation with Daggett's lavish lifestyle isn't going away. The scrutiny will continue, and it could even become a sticking point in future negotiations. We might see calls for new leadership, or at least a reshuffling of priorities with the union. So there you have it. The port strike has been temporarily suspended until January 15, 2025, with a 62% pay increase to tide over the workers until then. But come January, they'll be right back at the bargaining table, and the leadership controversy will add even more attention to an already complicated situation. As always, I'll be keeping an eye on this closely and giving you guys up to date reporting as this story develops. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Until then, peace.